If you have a cell phone or a pager, kindly turn it off or silent. If it goes off during the meeting, you will be asked to leave. I'd like to call a meeting to order. This is the September 12th, 2012 meeting of the Lowell Conservation Commission. Moving on to business, I'm going to take the third item of the agenda first, out of order. 101 Pawtucket Boulevard, concerning DEP file number. We didn't get a file number on that yet? We're still pending? Did you get a DEP file number? All right.
It did come through
At
yesterday.
206, or is it 700 or something? It should be right on
It
there.
would be 697.
697?
Yeah.
So 206 0697. And the project location is 1001 Pawtucket Boulevard, and it's construction of a berm and pumping stations within a floodplain at 1001 Pawtucket Boulevard, which they're indicating is an isolated land subject to flooding. That's just what the agenda reads. It's not necessarily what it is. If you could approach, we have a letter dated 2 days ago from Kenneth Grant. Is that you, sir?
No, Mr. Chairman, my name is Eric Nelson, also with Stanley Enterprises.
Okay. I have a letter from Kenneth Grant dated September 10th of this year requesting a continuance.
That's our intent this evening, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman, yes.
There's no time frame indicated in here, but I've heard the first meeting in September. Is that what you're looking for? Are you looking for something earlier than that?
I believe that's accurate, yes, Mr. Chairman.
The first meeting in October, I'm sorry.
Correct.
That would give us October 9th? No, October 10th, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so do I motion to continue this to the October 10th hearing date at the request of the applicant?
I make a motion to continue this to the October 10th meeting at the request of the applicant.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. All right.
All right, thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman. Thank you.
So anyone who's here for that particular issue, that we won't be considering that until the October 10th hearing date. Thank you for coming in. Moving on to the first item on the agenda, a notice of intent, Sherry Frere, concerning DEP file number 2060695. The project location is 17 Warren Court in the rear, the lower locks, and it's stabilization of the lower locks chamber fill valve and associated supporting elements of the Pawtucket Canal concerning bank and bordering land subject to flooding. If you could kindly identify yourself for the record.
Hi, I'm Sherry Freer. I'm a landscape architect with the National Park Service here in Lowell.
And why don't you tell us what you plan to do out there?
We have a two-part project here, and both of those are for consideration tonight. We are looking at first a stabilization, and then secondly a rehabilitation. The lower lock valve platform, as you may know, is that piece of granite that's very much in danger of falling into the canal down in the lower lock area. The granite platform is part of a system that allows additional water to be poured into the lower locks and allows whitewater rafters to move through there in the spring. It's in a very precarious condition right now, but to completely rehabilitate the structure will require quite a bit of money that we don't have at the moment. We do have sufficient funding for stabilization, and what we propose there is simply, to the extent possible, counterweighting that platform to stop its slide towards the canal until such time in about 2 years that we have sufficient funding to rehabilitate. Rehabilitation will involve essentially deconstructing the whole thing from the top to the bottom, including its supporting structure, and then putting it back together according to plans that we've submitted. And that's our proposal.
Can you give us a sense of how long you anticipate the work to take from start to finish?
The stabilization is scheduled to take no more than 10 days, and I'd be surprised if it actually took that long. The rehabilitation, let me defer to Jack Glassman, who's with me here tonight. He's with BH&A, and he's our consultant on the rehabilitation portion, which is quite a bit more complicated.
Thank you. And again, my name is Jack Glassman. I'm an architect with Bargman Hendry plus Archetype, and we're doing work as consultants for the National Park Service for this project. For the project, it's really an aggressive, it would need to be an aggressive schedule, and time will be of the essence because it would be coordinated with a drain down, and we anticipate that the work would be done in the fall when the canal isn't as likely to be used for water power. But so it would, I'm sure, be a matter of weeks, but they would really try to minimize the amount of time. So I'm assuming it's really going to be, at least 3 or 4 weeks. But it's a kind of it'll be a balancing act, I guess, in coordinating it with NL, the power company.
Can you stay there? Can you give us a sense of what sort of? I'm assuming you're going to be needing a crane to hold the lock gate while you're installing that. You're doing some sort of custom. I understand from reading the application, some sort of custom jury-rigged single-use application here that's designed just to support the hinge and the gate. Correct?
Well, it's really that's the granite slab that I think there are a number of components, I guess, as you know, that kind of make up that area. There's the fill that sort of makes up that kind of peninsular point where the valve is, that is kept, the fill is held by that timber sheeting, which placed vertically, and then that all on top of that sits this masonry platform, which is composed of smaller stones of various sizes, and then on top of that is the large dressed granite slab, which is the one that's really tilting over. So there are a number of different pieces to it. We thought that it might make sense in order to sort of pick up temporarily, to get some of those larger stones, in particular the granite platform. So that might require working from a crane. So our drawings, we sort of scoped out an area that a private property that they could use across really across the canal for staging. Other than that, it would be a matter of stockpiling the masonry and the components to as near as possible to then put them back and rebuild it as closely as possible to the original. We also thought it might be to drop in a barge, which would be the other reason for the crane, a kind of a barge next to the site, so that could be also used for either materials that are brought to the construction, masonry, or storing the historic components.
Do you anticipate any debris or falling into the canalway while you're doing this work? And to the extent that that's possible or probable, what sort of remediation measures are you going to be putting in place?
I guess what makes it unusual in that there's a lot of focus on a very small area, that it's really just this point. It comes down to a point, literally, but it's only 8 or 9 feet wide, and then the area impacted is 25 feet. Next to that, in the eastern canal side, there's a sump. There's actually sort of a 2-level granite with a granite step sump that we see as the sort of the perimeter. That would be the limit of work. And the sump, by being 2-tiered, that actually drops down into the chamber fill valve itself. The whole reason for this valve is the sump, which then connects to a pipe, which then runs underneath the lock and could be used to drain. So we see that being used just to drain the water initially, together with the drain down of the canal system. And then we would make certain to filter the water, whatever ongoing dewatering would be needed. We anticipate there'd be sort of a constant pumping and dewatering during construction, and that would be filtered to prevent debris from going down through the locks down to the riverside.
All right, any questions for the applicant from the commission? Commissioner Vedran? Commissioner Lynch, Commissioner Chalupka? Commissioner Varnum? Commissioner Lovely? All right. Just give me a second. So you pretty much anticipate getting this whole thing while the canal or the wasteway is drawn down?
For the rehabilitation, yes. And with respect to the stabilization, I hope to do that work next month. That won't require a drawdown to simply reset that platform straight.
Okay, and will that be done with a crane, or, how?
That will be done with a crane. Our intent is to reach across the canal with a crane. We're working with UML right now to get permission to stage on their property, because they own the property that abuts that portion of the canal.
Is it, you're staging from the ICC side?
Correct.
Okay. All right. All right. Is there anyone here who would like to offer their comments or concerns regarding this project? Is there anyone here who would like to offer their comments or concerns? All right. Is there anyone here who would like to offer their comments or concerns? All right. Do we have any comments back from the city on this, Aaron? From the engineer's office?
Just the ones that were submitted earlier. I don't think there was really much for this project other than what you already touched upon as far as the sediment control, during the second phase particularly. And to note that this is a two-phase project under a single order of conditions, rather than bringing it into two separate filings. It's all one, and that one of them will be a temporary solution, as Sherry pointed out, short term. Other than that, I think that pretty much covered everything that we had.
Are you going to be, when you, I have one final question. When you replace the granite caps, are they going to be different in profile or elevation than what's there now? I'm assuming you're trying to get it all back to what it historically was for the purposes of integrity of the gates and...
Exactly right. It's our intention to replace, obviously not in kind, but it will appear as it did historically. We would not change any of the profiles on the stones, no.
Okay, you're not building up any of the
No,
granite ledges
absolutely
or
not.
any more so than they already are. Okay, all right. All right, I don't think I noted that in the application anyway. All right, do I have a motion to close the public hearing if there's no further comments from the commission?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Any discussion? Seconded by
Second.
Commissioner Varnum, motion by Commissioner Chalupka. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. All right. This is here for, filed under a notice of intent requesting an order of conditions. We have obviously an inland bank bordering land subject to flooding. Floodplain, for the most part, is contained within the floodway. So. Do I have a motion on this?
Move to issue a Lowell Standard Order of Conditions under the Wetlands Protection Act and the Wetlands Bylaw, based on the plans submitted by the applicant.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
By Commissioner Lovely, motion by Commissioner Varnum. Any discussion on the motion? All right. All in favor signify by saying yea or nay. Commissioner Vedran?
Yay.
Commissioner Lynch?
Aye.
Commissioner Chalupka?
Aye.
Chair is yes. Commissioner Varnum?
Yes.
Commissioner Lovely? All right, the ayes have it. Motion carries. Order of conditions will issue. Thank you for coming in. Good luck.
Thank you.
Moving on to the next item on the agenda, notice of intent, Mark Poirier, concerning DEP file number 2060696. The project location is the East Merrimack Bridge at Kearney Square, and it's repair and reconstruction of the East Merrimack Street Bridge crossing the Eastern Canal near Kearney Square, again, bank and bordering land subject to flooding, and it's right in the immediate neighborhood of what we just were talking about. Sir, if you could identify yourself for the record.
Good evening. My name is Mark Poirier. I'm General Manager for Operations East for Enel Green Power North America.
If you could tell us what you propose to do.
Yes, our project is to basically replace in kind the south sidewalk and the 2 traffic lanes of the Kearney Square Bridge. This project will be divided in 2 phases. Phase 1 is the demolition of the sidewalk, the south sidewalk and the south lane, while traffic will be moving both ways on the north lane. This phase should last approximately 4 months. After the demolition is the reconstruction of the south sidewalk as well as the south lane. That's included in that 4 months. And the second phase of the project will be the demolition and the reconstruction of the north lane. The north sidewalk will not be touched. The second phase will last approximately 3 months. During the second phase, there's only one-way traffic on the bridge moving eastward, and the western traffic will be rerouted.
Moving eastward, that's from downtown to outbound towards Belvedere
Correct.
for 3 months?
For 3 months, yes.
And when you say the traffic will be rerouted where?
Well, we have.
I mean, there's only 2 roads.
Yes, correct. The plan we have proposed to the city is not yet accepted, but the traffic would go over, I forget now. Over Church and Hanover.
Oh, where?
Over Church and Hanover.
Okay. I was hoping you weren't going to say Bridge Street, because if you've heard of the Boston Tea Party, you'd have people with pitchforks coming after you, so. All right, that's really not our issue, but is this the same outfit that did the Central Street
Yes, it is.
Bridge? And again, this isn't our issue, but, and I don't know if you've noticed it, but but you probably have realized in pictures or after the work was done on that bridge, the black railing that runs along the top of the concrete siding doesn't fit. And on the 2 end plates that anchor the black railing, the plates stick out into the roadway about 1.5 inches from a sharp point, and it's quite dangerous for if pedestrians happen to be walking in the roadway or bicyclist comes by and gets nudged into that. I mean, it's a very dangerous situation, and it should be looked at and rectified. And if it's a situation that is going to be repeated on East Merrimack Street, you should perhaps ask your designers to be redesigning that rail as it interfaces with the concrete berm or whatever they call that thing that runs along the side. It's, I walk by that 5 times a day, and I'm just amazed someone hasn't been injured on that yet. So
I never noticed that, but
you should take a look at it.
I will.
You'll see what I'm saying as soon as you look at it. It's kind of looks like the architect didn't talk to the guy who did the concrete, or vice versa, or someone.
Well, in the Central Street Bridge, it was, that guardrail, we reused it. It was the same guardrail, and the bridge was only repaired. In the case of Kearney Square, it's a complete.
Yeah, I mean, that's not our issue either, but I'm just,
I-
I've sent a letter to the city about it, and I've never heard anything, but I'm just bringing it, I've got the microphone and I've got a forum, so I'm just bringing it to your attention.
That's a good point. I will certainly take a look.
All right. All right. I'm going to reserve my questions. Are there any questions for the proponent, Commissioner Bedrin?
Now, so the first phase is going to take 4 months?
Approximately, yes.
And the second phase is going to take 3 months, so total about 7 months
Cor-
to complete the project?
Correct.
Where is the construction going to be staged from?
That's not determined yet.
Huh?
Where is it going to be staged from, you said?
Yeah.
That's not determined yet, apart from the limit of the bridge. This is a responsibility that's going to be bared by the general
Contractor?
yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Lynch? Commissioner Varnum?
Could you describe what steps are going to be taken to keep debris from falling into the canal?
Well, like we did on the other bridges, a netting system and a tarp system is going to be installed underneath the bridge during the demolition phase. And the first time the canal will be dewatered, if anything fell, it can be picked up at this time. Before the construction, because there's a high voltage cable underneath this bridge, some protection system are going to be laid down at the bottom of the canal so nothing is damaged.
Will there be any need to stockpile materials anywhere near the canal? For instance, I don't know what kind of materials, but things that could possibly erode into the canal.
I'm not sure I understand.
I'm not sure what types of materials you're going to need for loose materials, or any loose materials that might.
This bridge is mostly steel, granite blocks, and concrete. So everything that's going to be removed is very solid debris. It's not. There should be a very minimal amount of wood. There's a little bit, but nothing else is expected to float away, if that was the question.
Now, I believe there's some catch basins nearby. Are those going to be blocked off during construction, or stormwater catch basins?
My name is Ed Brown, and I'm with AI Engineers. We prepared the contract documents for this bridge reconstruction, or the superstructure replacement. The answer to the question is that those existing catch basins are beyond the limit of the construction. So there's no reason to block them. They can continue to capture the runoff from the upstream area. The slope is from the downtown area toward the bridge. They really do need to be functioning. With half of the roadway open, I could say whatever happens today will continue to happen with that runoff continuing across the existing bridge. The new construction area is approximately 30 feet wide, including the sidewalk, the south sidewalk, and almost 2 lanes of construction. The depth of the excavation is only about 4 feet, and there will be minimal runoff between the catch basins and the excavation. Also, the work area will be completely closed off. There'll be traffic, concrete barriers, and chain link fence to enclose the work area so that it's confined and protected.
Thank you.
Commissioner Lovely?
Just to follow up on Commissioner Varnum's comment, so you're saying that the runoff moves away from the proposed work area and not towards it?
It moves, okay, with half of the road open,
Yeah.
that area, the inlets on the uphill side
Yeah.
will capture the runoff. The roadway that's open during construction will allow that runoff to continue past the construction area. There's only about 10 feet between the catch basin and the limit of our work. So there won't be a significant amount of runoff getting to that location.
Gotcha. All right, thank you. No further questions.
All right, I think the concern is we have the Eastern Canal, which you're going to be working immediately over.
Right.
And to the east of that and downhill from your work site is the Concord River.
Mhm.
And the bridge crossing the Concord River, and there are catch basins there. I think the concern, and I think it's prudent, is that we get some siltation barrier. They make the things and protect those catch basins. Some of those empty directly into the Concord there. So you'd have to check with the city engineer's office. But it's all of that water from the railroad tracks, from the trolley tracks, across the bridge and down, run downhill to the Concord.
That's, I acknowledge that. The limit on the east side of the bridge, the limit of our construction will be and I'll say the foundation for the trolley track. Okay, and it's only about 5 feet. We've had to do a special design for the approach slab on that side and shorten it up to 5 feet because of the substructure, the support structure for the trolley tracks. So, and we'll be down the 3.5 or 4 feet from the roadway level, and nothing will be going, I mean, from the trolley tracks to the east, we're not doing anything.
All right, you're not, is there any, I'm assuming there's no regrading of the trolley track area.
No.
But you
Absolutely.
come right up to, I don't, it's, boy, I pass over that 5 times a day. Well, it has to be an even number, I guess, because I live on the other side. But, I pass over that quite a bit. And I know the trolley tracks are very close to the bridge area.
In this plan that we have colored, this yellow section here is what we call the approach slab. It's buried, and the pavement itself will be built on top of it. And it's intended to prevent that kind of ramping effect that you get.
Right.
So we've shown the trolley tracks here, and stretch me. Okay. We recognize the need to protect and not really impact the trolley at all as a result of the construction. So we have limited our approach slab to the foundation of that. The 2 inlets of concern are here on the west side, and they will continue to intercept the runoff from the downtown area that does tend to flow toward the bridge site. Our approach slab on the west side is the normal 10 feet in length. We've had to create a little notch in it because of the catch basin foundation and structure itself. But in our phased construction, traffic will continue on this north side of the bridge during phase 1. So there's no need to change anything or protect anything there in the way of runoff. While we're building this part of the bridge here, this will be in a 4-foot excavation at this location and this location. and there's minimal amount of runoff that will get into the excavation. It will hit that pervious material that exists, and it'll just percolate into the ground. On the east side, again, we're limiting our construction to the trolley track.
We don't have that plan.
The colored
Looked through the
plan,
application and the site plan submitted, and we don't have that.
the colored plan, you don't have.
No, we don't have, I don't have anything that looks remotely like that in the stuff I've been submitted to me. I'm looking at that, and now I'm leafing through what I have, and, I mean, if you can tell me what page it's on, great. Your submittal's 13 pages, and the site plans are 12, and it's not on any of them.
It should be one of the, like drawing number 3. Yeah, that's. Well, okay, if this is, this plan here, which was, I believe, part of the application, entitled Highway Plan and Details Wetlands Plan, that does show the bridge construction, or the bridge outline. The site plan documents that I believe were submitted included the 16 or 17 drawings that were in the contract that was being advertised in boot camp.
Make sure you're speaking into a microphone, please.
Do we have extra copies of that, Aaron? I mean, I can't find it. I'm just,
This is the submittal. The difference is there isn't, in the plan that was submitted with the application, there isn't the section of the bridge showing what's going to be cut away on the lower left. You don't have the coloration showing the areas, but it's on the plan that was submitted. The plan, there's a plan and a section of the deck. On the plan, it shows the limits of the work and the approach area. What's not submitted with the plan is the section that includes the piers and the embankment and the amount of material and debris or not debris, but the amount of material that's going to be excavated.
yeah, I realize that. I mean, I've got the site plans that were submitted are very detailed, and there's details on each of the pages. I understand that, but I don't like to be referring to a plan in the hearing, and we didn't get it.
Okay.
I'm very particular about that. I don't like to be showing and telling a plan, and that's not one that's part of our submittal. All right, what sort of, I know you outlined in the application, but what sort of siltation are you going to, barrier that you're going to put in place underneath? Are you something similar to what you did on the Central Street project?
Well, I know in the bid documents, we have a specification for temporary shielding, which we leave the design to the contractor. We have not shown anything specifically. We acknowledge and have a criteria in the specifications that any debris that happens to fall into the canal is to be removed immediately. I think that to facilitate the construction of the superstructure, that the contractor needs to have a platform in the canal that he can work from to work on the 2 abutments. There's stone masonry to be removed, stone blocks in the pier and the east abutment to be removed. He's got the superstructure, which is composed of steel stringers that are in very poor condition, some concrete decking, some metal decking, some timber decking, and the shield and the support that's in the canal will provide him, contractor, with multiple opportunities. One, a work platform. Two, to capture anything that might fall into the canal.
So I take it, working from a platform, you're not planning on having the canal drawn down during the work phase?
The specs indicate that that criteria is not guaranteed to the contractor. He may request it. It may be available to him.
All right. I don't know. There's not a lot of, as you know, there's not a lot of space between the bottom of that bridge and the water surface.
Acknowledged.
So, yeah. How about the utilities that run along? There's, I don't know, steam pipe. I don't know what the heck they are. There's all
okay.
sorts of pipes and stuff. I know the removal process, but what's going to happen to those after on the new bridge?
Okay, the steam line that is on the west canal wall and abutment will be removed. It'll be cut close to the new construction limits and removed and capped. On the existing bridge, there are telephone conduits, there are electric conduits, and also a gas line. Those are to be relocated. We have accommodated on the new structure supports for those utilities. The utility company themselves are responsible for temporary support and then the transfer or relocation of those utilities into the new bridge.
Will they be, so you don't know what their situs will be, whether they'll be hung off the side or underneath, or what's the performance standard
We've
on something like
accommodated
that?
them underneath and between the stringers.
Okay.
And we've anticipated the sizes to be comparable to what's there today.
Now, how about pedestrian traffic during the 7 months of working?
That's a good point. We have phasing diagrams that show the proposed traffic barriers that we want the contractor to install. From the standpoint of pedestrian traffic, we are closing the sidewalk on the south side during that first phase of construction. We're having the pedestrians cross the street at the intersection where there is a crosswalk, move over to the north sidewalk, which will remain open and is part of its city property, and have them walk on the north sidewalk until there's another opportunity east of the bridge to cross back to the south side. Because the crosswalk that's closer to the trolley tracks will be masked during construction. It'll be covered over with tape so that it's not visibly there for pedestrian use.
Now, how about when you say, so you're going to close let me see, north is pointing towards Christian Hill. So the south side, you say you're going to be closing the south side?
The south
During
side
the first
sidewalk,
phase?
except, there's access to the building and the condos that occupy the corner building. And the driveway associated with, or the outside area that it's associated with the restaurant on the corner. So that part of the sidewalk will remain open and accessible. Pedestrians that need to move from west to east or east to west will have to use the north sidewalk. Once the phase one construction is completed, that phase one construction includes sidewalk on the south side, the relocated, repositioned ornamental pedestrian railing, and then a new traffic railing adjacent to the curb line. That south sidewalk will be open during phase two construction. Both sidewalks will be open at that point.
So during phase two, both sidewalks will be open?
That's correct.
It's just during phase one, the south side will be closed?
Right.
So the north side will never be closed?
That's
All right.
true.
All right, I noticed that this is a 1024 limited project you've filed under. All right, any other questions from the commission? Okay. Is there anyone here who would like to offer their comments or concerns regarding this project? Yeah, just come on up, identify yourself for the record. And do we get sushi also?
Yes.
All right.
Well, I don't know. I hope so after this. Steve Ramirez. I own 15 Kearney Square and 133 East Merrimack. We all know this is one of the key entries into Lowell, so it'd be great to have this bridge repaired. But the timing's a little scary. It seems we have the Memorial Auditorium shows, we have the Merrimack Repertory Theater shows, the college has opened. So the main thing is how we're going to direct the pedestrians. I didn't pay attention to which is south and where it falls on my building. I mean, we have a lot of people.
You're on the south side.
I'm on the south side. So the alleyway on our side, that's a private alleyway to begin with. So I don't know if that's planning to be left open or not. But I mean, if that's where they're going to direct the traffic. But I mean, we have handicap. We have a lot of issues like that were coming to the restaurant from the front. We don't have a side entrance that has a ramp. It seems like such a big project that I think a lot of the neighbors should be notified in a better way. The college, all the way down the street, I think, because this is going to affect everyone around that whole area. We have winter's coming, snow removal. We have deliveries. We were going to start up valet parking in front of the restaurant and bring it to our other property, but I think this is going to change that. But the main concern is how we're going to bring the people up into the city for all the other restaurants and businesses, especially during the fights and, again, the shows at both arenas. So I think we really everyone need to be on top of this, which will...
Yeah, I understand those concerns, and, believe me, as I said, this is how I get to and from work myself. And unfortunately, though, those really aren't our issues in this commission. We're more concerned with the impacts to the Eastern Canal and the waterway and stormwater management and keeping debris out of the Eastern Canal and ultimately out of the Concord River. Because that's where it goes here.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, no,
And changes to the floodway and whatnot. Traffic patterns are for greater minds than myself. It's going to be tough. I sympathize.
Yeah.
And maybe I missed it. Maybe Ed, you had indicated the time frame, but I know you've got 4 and 3 months for phase 1 and phase 2 respectively. But what time of the year are you proposing to start this? And not that any time is good. I mean, I'd like to say over the summer because you don't have the school traffic, but I don't, again, that's going to impact on the restaurants and the foot traffic that's normally attendant at that time of the year. So, what is your time frame for doing this work or starting it?
As I said, we're still in the bidding process with the different general contractors, but the plan is to start as early as mid to end of October this year, do phase 1, perhaps a lapse between phase 1 and 2, a very short lapse, February, and then start again in March and complete before the end, the mid-May.
What I suggest, and again, this is just a suggestion, and being good neighbors, is get together with the folks, the restaurants in that immediate area, the LMA. I know the LMA is a representative here tonight, and everyone will be given a chance to speak, but get together with them and, try and figure it out, because this is a major gateway into the downtown, and, again, it's not our issue, but people are coming in for shows, they're coming in for, I've never been to Lowell before, and to be hit with something like that is a fairly significant hassle, especially since, you won't be able to cross it or you won't be able to get back out of the city once you've crossed it. you know, I mean, just navigating the downtown and the one-way streets can be a hassle, and ending up outbound on Church Street when you're expecting to go up East Merrimack Street, you know, you're in two different neighborhoods just about if you're not familiar with the area. So, you know, again, not our issue, but try and compress that time, and as you said, there's going to be a little gap between phase 1 and phase 2. I'm assuming the sidewalk will still remain closed, though, in the interim. It won't be all reopened again. So,
Chairman, if I may, just jump in on this. I know maybe this would help with folks who've participated or come this evening because of traffic concerns.
right.
My understanding from the city engineer and the traffic engineer is that the plan is still being worked out, but one of the requirements before construction can begin is that there's a public meeting with the downtown neighborhood group and other stakeholders that are going to be impacted by this project to
Has that been
address
scheduled
these
yet?
type of things.
Has that been scheduled yet?
Not that I know of, but
Okay.
before construction can begin, that's my understanding is that's one of the conditions of the work, of the work scope.
Okay, so there will be, the city engineer and traffic planning will have a meeting,
Well,
a public meeting
It's
between the applicant and,
No,
and-
the applicant will be scheduling that, working and reaching out with the neighborhood group. It's a requirement of the city engineer that be done before construction begins.
will that be published and noticed to,
I don't
local
know
businesses?
exactly how it's going to be, people are going to be notified, but I'm sure it'll be reaching out directly to the neighborhood groups. We can provide, the applicant, we can provide names of.
is there a
potential-
contact person for that? In the city?
Yeah, I can, through Development Services, work with building a list of contacts that they can
Okay,
reach out to.
that's Aaron Clausen, in case you don't know, so you can call him. I
Yeah,
won't give
did
you
you
out your
really have
cell
to
phone
say-
number,
did you
but.
have to do that? No, but we can do that, because I know there's a number of calls that we received today, and we can compile that list. But just I wanted to point that out, because this is not complete and it hasn't been fully addressed, and there will be an opportunity to have a discussion about traffic mitigation during construction at a later date, but before construction begins.
Which is the more appropriate forum for traffic. I mean, as I said, we're the Conservation Commission. We're not, and I understand your concerns, and you haven't had an opportunity to voice those concerns anywhere, so you're going to obviously show up here because you got a notice. But let's make sure that the appropriate parties, that this is highly visible, because this is the Central Street crossing was done, fairly quickly and with minimal impacts, but you had a much wider road to work with. I believe it was probably, 20 feet wider there? 40 feet wider. It's, almost 2 lanes both ways, so you don't have that here, so. And this is more of a significant gateway, perhaps, than even Central Street is. All right. If there's anyone else who would like to offer their comments or concerns.
Yeah, hi, Terry McCarthy from the Auditorium Mill City Management. As Steve said, we have some concerns with the traffic pattern, but Aaron just announced that we're going to have a little meeting. You got to remember, you have the auditorium, you have the MRT, and you have Middlesex Community College going at the same time. And I'm sure that we've all been trying to get by the auditorium when there's a show going on, and it's as it is now, it's tough. So we have a lot of work to do before they really get this thing going, because the investments that these people have over there is, you got the hospital up there too, you have to be concerned about too. I forgot about that. So Aaron, I guess, thank you, and if you can kind of push that along, we'd appreciate that.
Okay.
But thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you for coming in.
Just if you are speaking or interested in information, please sign in with your name and contact number.
Yeah, there's a sign-up sheet at the podium. If you could indicate that with your number and email address, I would imagine. I think there's a space for that, isn't there? Yeah.
Hey, my name's Bob Ramirez. I own the back page. I'm right on the canal, behind the restaurant, and that is the only access to my business. And you guys are talking about the wintertime, so there's only one way of plowing that whole area, and that's going out. So I don't know if it's blocking that. It's going to be partially I don't know anything about it, so, again, I guess we're gonna, this other meeting, whatever we're gonna have to do here, because,
We recognize the need for access to the west side of the canal, both north and south. And during construction, we have maintained access into those alleys or streets, parking areas. It's tight, and the contractor, not knowing, the contractor can be pushed, okay, to get his work done in that area as quickly as possible so that he maintains as wide an access way to the businesses.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if you're aware, but vehicles actually go down that alleyway.
Yeah, we've
There's
made
I
provision.
know for the back page, I'm assuming some of the bands that play in there bring vehicles down there to offload equipment,
right.
and they might have delivery vehicles that go down there. But traditionally, that was used by the Lowell Sun for their paper delivery vehicles. There used to be 30, 40 vehicles down on that.
The liquor deliveries and everything,
Yeah,
you know, they gotta,
and that would,
they
you know,
have
they
to
go
plow
in and
that.
out of there on a daily basis. So that's, you know, that's a roadway. I know there's tables and chairs there now, but that still is used for vehicle access for the businesses that are along that area.
Understood, provisions have been made.
And they know that there will be, at any given time, that a plow will go through there, and they can get in and out of there at any time during the construction if there's a snowstorm.
We'll make sure that the contractor's aware of that.
All right. Is there anyone else who'd like to offer their comments or concerns?
I have a
Okay.
question. Is night work
Yep.
an option to speed this up? Like working through the night,
That's a good question.
After 2?
right? Is that an option, or?
Well, right now, it's not considered. Of course, there's a cost, and there's always a repercussion to work at night for the residential because of the noise.
Mhm.
So,
And it's like, once you start, right? Like, the bridge will be,
sorry?
the bridge will be under construction. It's not like, oh, let's work at night, and then we put it back together and drive over it the next day.
No.
Okay, so like, once you start, it's,
All right. Any other comments or concerns? Anyone else would like to offer their comments or concerns? All right. Any other comments or concerns from the commission? All right. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll offer a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
By Commissioner Lynch, seconded by Commissioner Lovely, seconded by Commissioner Chalupka. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. All right. Do we have this is here for a notice of intent. It's a limited project under 310 CMR 10.24 due to the fact that it's a rehabilitation of a access way or a roadway and bridgeway.
I move to issue a standard order of conditions for this project with its special conditions that when the contractor has a sediment containment plan in place, that it be submitted to the Lowell Conservation Commission for review
And approval?
and approval. Anything else? Anything else?
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
By Commissioner Beardron. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Commissioner Beardron?
Aye.
Commissioner Lynch?
Aye.
Commissioner Chalupka?
Aye.
Chair is yes. Commissioner Varnum?
Yes.
Commissioner Lovely?
Yes.
All right, the ayes carry. Thank you for coming in. Good luck. moving on. This is a two-part item on the agenda. It's a request for an extension of an order of conditions and also an enforcement order. Paul Mercier concerning DEP file number 2060584. The project location is 51 and 57 Shirley Avenue, and it's the construction of a single-family home in bordering land subject to flooding. Just to restate that this is a two-part item agenda. What I am going to do is I'm going to take the enforcement order first, as there's an outstanding and open enforcement order that needs to be either ratified or not ratified by the Conservation Commission. And then I will take up the issue on the extension of the order of conditions second. So we're going to focus on the enforcement order that issued August 23rd. Okay, I have it here somewhere. All right. Yeah, I have a copy of it here. Yeah, the enforcement order issued, how do I do this? Yeah, August 23rd of this year. All right. Attorney Claremont.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to be present and submit some information on behalf of Paul Mercier regarding the project at 5157 Shirley Avenue. I do have some correspondence I'd like to submit to the board, if I may approach.
Certainly. Are these the letters dated September 5th and September 11th? Yeah.
One additional letter dated September 12th.
Okay.
Two of the letters I had submitted to Aaron earlier, and I think that's why you had them in your package. The additional letter dated September 12th I just received, so I just gave you a copy of that one. And as it relates to the enforcement order, which essentially I believe relates to a tree issue, I'd like to refer to those letters. The first one being a letter from Norse Environmental dated September 5th, 2012. And essentially indicates that the engineer had spoken to Polaris Engineering, the original designer of the plan. They informed us that the trees shown on the plan were intended only as reference, and that there is no designation on the plan that would suggest they were not to be cut. In fact, at least 4 of the trees that are depicted must be cut for construction of the dwelling. We find no reference in the order that would prevent cutting of trees, particularly of trees that pose a potential safety hazard. And that's the letter from North Environmental. The second letter in the package is actually dated September 12th, and that was a follow-up letter from Hancock Associates. And he addressed the letter of September 5th that I just referred to by indicating, and this is under the signature of Matt Hammer, the senior project manager, acting on behalf of Polaris Engineering Corporation, now Hancock Associates. It's my same assertion to your understanding of the design intent referenced in your letter dated September 5th, 2012, that the trees depicted on the plan for the above referenced property were shown as a reference and not intended to be shown for any other purpose. It is my understanding that trees would be removed as necessary for development of the subject property and left to the discretion of the owner as to whether they would be cleared for construction or preserved for aesthetic purposes. In the final letter, under the signature of David Burrell from Burrell Land Clearing, dated September 11th, indicates they were hired to remove trees at the house lot located on Shirley Avenue. There were certain trees located along the exterior of this particular house lot that were a major concern for the home builder and homeowner. We asked to examine the trees for potential safety hazards as the trees were dying and rotting. After looking at the trees, there was no doubt they were hazardous and posed a major threat to hitting the house in a future storm of strong winds. In my professional opinion, these trees were not safe to have near a house and need to be removed to avoid future damages and or injury to the homeowner's property and self. So I submit these as evidence of the fact that the plan did apparently list 2 trees to be removed. There are other trees located on the plan that had no notation on them, but the engineers indicate it wasn't intended that these trees were all to be preserved, that they would preserve what they could, but some could not be preserved. I would submit that there's no benefit to the owner to removing trees that don't have to be removed, and the owner removed only trees that need to be removed either for construction or because they pose a safety hazard. There's no known prohibition to the removal of these trees, and as it relates to the enforcement order, we would request initially that the enforcement order be removed.
All right. I respectfully disagree. The site plan that was approved, which is a part of the order, and indeed trees were discussed in 2005 as part of the minutes of the hearing, the public hearing, prior to the issuance of an order of conditions. The site plan that was approved by the Conservation Commission, it's signed and dated October 6, 2005, indicates a southerly treat area, and then also existing single or noted trees on the plan. There's notations as to specific trees to be removed. However, there's with respect to the other specifically identified trees, and we as a commission have a history of identifying larger species on the site plan. And again, the site plan, if it's on the site plan, it's supposed to be there. There's also, this is bordering land subject to flooding. It is a resource area subject to the jurisdiction of the local conservation commission. There are restrictions to wholesale cutting in resource areas. And quite frankly, I think there's 4 trees left on this site in the southeast corner. Southeast corner of the site. The entire greenway that existed on the southeast corner as extends to the front towards Shirley Ave on the southwest corner are completely gone. There was discussion in the meeting about keeping those trees, and specifically even the site plan that's approved shows the vegetated area. It doesn't indicate it's going to be removed, therefore it stays. That's a feature, and that's a feature of the site. It's a feature of the build out of the site, and the plan is just as much a part of the order of conditions. I mean, our order of conditions would be 100 pages long if we listed every particular and single item that's enclosed on the plan on the order of conditions. So what we do is we refer to the site plan that's submitted and approved, and indicate that that as part of the order, the site plan must be followed. Notwithstanding that, whether reasonable minds can agree or disagree as to whether or not the trees could or not be removed, a valid order, enforcement order issued to stop work. And from what I understand, work continued on the site, not once but twice. Both of those easily could have been subject to an additional enforcement order. The last thing I want to mention, at least as far as mine, is Lowell Special Order of Condition number 3 indicates that the order of conditions must be recorded within 28 days of it being issued, or it becomes null and void. It was recorded 34 days after the issuance. Now, I know that's not Mr. Mercier's issue, but he's subject to it because it was 2 prior owners that did it. The order issued the order issued October 5th, 2005, and wasn't recorded until November 10th of 2005, clearly beyond the limitation. And it doesn't say it may be, it says it shall be null and void. I take that to mean that this is not a valid order. And the applicant proceeded, and again, this isn't an order that was issued to the applicant. This was an order that issued to, 2 successors in interest to him. We've got some serious issues with respect to just the enforcement order itself, and I understand we have some information from the city. I would like, before, well, actually, if there's any questions of the representative, Attorney Claremont from the commission, let's do that now. Commissioner Biedron, Commissioner Lynch, Commissioner Chaluka, Commissioner Varnum.
Before a question, could I just respond to one point while it's on my mind? You had mentioned the time frame in terms of the recording of the order of conditions back in 2005. It does indicate that it was issued on October 5th, 2005, but it wasn't submitted to the applicant until October 14th of 2005, and then it was submitted by certified mail, if I'm reading that correctly. So I'm not sure when they actually did receive it, but certainly sometime after October 14th, 2005. So I just point that out in reference to that recording date.
Commissioner Varnum.
We've mentioned Standard Order 3. Standard Order 1 also states that 48 hours prior to commencement of any work, the Lowell Conservation Commission will be given written notification of said work. I don't believe that was done, and we were discussing trees the night before the work began, so we had no knowledge that work was going to be beginning on the following day.
Commissioner Lovely. And again, this is, I got a little astray, but this is just on the enforcement order.
Understood. A couple of questions. I guess I'll save the one on the relationship between this and the discussion we had on the extension of the permit for, I guess, the second item. But with regard to the enforcement order, if I look at the exact plan, how many of the additional trees that were removed were within the footprint of the proposed 3-car garage?
Those 2 trees within the footprint of the 3-car garage were removed, correct? Yes.
And then the additional trees, were they removed from outside of the footprint of that 3-car garage or all within?
The tree to the left of that proposed 3-car garage within the building setback was also removed, and the one next to the foundation to the top of that proposed 3-bedroom dwelling were removed. It's my I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. No, so the existing figure shows, it has an accurate inventory of the trees that were in place at the time the plan was submitted.
I presume from 2005, correct.
All right. So what we're talking about is trees that were removed in addition to the two that were on the plan within the footprint of the proposed three-car garage, there was an additional 2 trees removed, if I understand, the one to the, behind the foundation of the building, I guess, east, if I look at the compass arrow on the plan, and then to the, further to the north and outside of the building, of the garage footprint would be the additionals, for a total of 4 trees.
I believe that's correct.
Okay. Thank you. I'll save my other question for the next part. Thank you.
Yeah.
To follow up on your question, Bill, I believe there were at least a dozen fairly large trees lying down, waiting to be processed, not just 4.
The neighbors provided us with a picture of at least 6 or 7 trees that were cut down.
With regard to Commissioner Varnum's observation of other trees, those were where the tank is shown on this particular plan. There weren't any trees shown on the plan, so those were removed. Those were not trees shown on this plan.
So,
Well,
Mr. Chairman, just to clarify.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, when I went out there last week, the only trees I saw were, there was 2 clusters, literally 2 trunks left. There wasn't a tree on the site, except for the 2 trunks in the southeast corner of the site. There weren't any other trees. So I don't know what trees standing that we're talking about. I mean, the whole site was stripped, so.
Well, the applicant's indicating that the trees along the back of the site were all not removed, and there's a half dozen or so trees back there.
Yeah, well, looking at the site from Shirley, the back right-hand corner, there's only 2 trunks left back there, and even, there was a cluster of ash, and even those some of them were taken down. There was about 4 or 5 trees coming out of one trunk.
These are still there.
No, over here. And again, it shows, the plan shows a greenway over there. It shows a green, an overlying canopy with, a treed area extending from the southeast corner to the front. And I didn't see anything like that remaining on the site. And certainly none of the trees over to the north side of the site were remaining, or towards the back. Unless the fence isn't the back property bound. But I didn't, so I'm a little, I guess, confused as to what trees we're talking about that are still there that I didn't happen to see, so. All right, any other questions for the representative? Okay, what I'd like to do is, as part of this, is take, I can rely on my own observations, but I wasn't out there at the start of this process, so what I would like to do is take some, Aaron, if you could, or Swati, I believe you went out and it could outline the enforcement order process and what you observed and what you saw and what you did.
Sure, there were a number of times when Development Services staff had gone out to the site to inspect it, so I'll try to provide an outline, and then you can fill in where I'm a little off. But the commission may recall that the last meeting there was we had a lengthy discussion about this particular project and how it related to the recent Permit Extension Act, and by that being put into place, it created a situation whereby there were 2 open orders of condition. This one that we've been talking about tonight that was originally issued in 2005, and then an order of conditions that was issued approximately 4 to 6 months ago. I can't remember that exactly. However, that order denied a similar request. The procedures for moving forward was such that, in discussions with the DEP, was the applicant had the option to choose which order they wanted to move forward with, and formally do so through DEP, at which time there was a letter that was sent to DEP requesting that the most recent order be nullified, thrown out, and that they would move forward with this order of conditions from '05. The letter from DEP was sent out on the 22nd accepting that, and at that point, this order was in effect. The 2005 order was in effect. On August 23rd, we were aware site work was beginning under this order, but then also were made aware that some trees were coming down that sounded to, or at least appeared to be, beyond the scope of what was approved with the order. So later that afternoon, building inspector and myself had inspected the site, and did notice that there were 3 trees that were cut down that were indicated on the plan that's already been discussed. There was the birch that's located in front of the building, the ash located in the back, and then right behind the building near the foundation, and then the other ash, 10-inch, that is indicated approximately 5 feet from the back parcel boundary, were removed. At that time, we issued a stop work order, and part of that stop work order was that any of the clearing and trees that were cut down were to be removed from the site, so that there wasn't any, actually basically just to remove the fill, what is in essence fill in a floodplain area, but that no other work could occur until the applicant was able to be before the Conservation Commission to address steps forward for a mitigation plan, or if this was considered okay. The enforcement order also required that what was called a mitigation plan be submitted by this date for the Conservation Commission's consideration. So that was issued on the 23rd. On the 24th, there was a number of development services staff that met the property owner on the site, the applicant on the site, to discuss the enforcement order. On the 30th, we were notified that there was additional work going on the site, and that it was, again, clearing trees that were identified on the plan to be preserved. So at that time, a phone conversation occurred between development services staff and the property owner, reiterating the stop order and requesting that no work be commenced on the site, including the removal of previously cleared vegetation. Then once again on September 4th, there was more clearing, pretty much what you see there today. And once again, there was another communication between the development services staff and the property owner, reiterating the stop work order.
All right. Would you like to address any of those?
I'll have
Are
Mr.
there any
Mercier
questions from the
address
commission
a
first?
couple of
Hold
those
on a second,
concerns.
Attorney Clement. Is there any questions?
I just want to clarify one
Yeah.
thing. When you issued a stop work order following tree removal, you meant following the removal of the felled trees that fell, not removing live trees, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Attorney Clement, sorry.
Yeah, I'm going to have Mr. Mercier address some of the specific concerns because he's more familiar with what happened on the site.
After they asked me to stop doing it, I got permission from the building department to at least clean the site so it wouldn't be a hazard to any kids that are playing there. Unfortunately, it took 2 days for them to clean the site. They did the site right away, and I think Aaron has the dates. One of the loggers also seen a dead tree, and I know Louise was there. She's seen the same thing, but he took upon himself just to cut it because it was dead. And that's the one where I got my second don't do any work, but they were there to pick up the final logs. So they really didn't work on the site. They cleaned the site out because I was worried about people getting hurt. And I know Louise was there. And I'm going to say there's got to be at least 8 to 10 trees there now that border the back of the property that I left after talking with people who showed up at the site, they weren't a concern to me because they weren't in the construction area. But that logger he did take the dead tree down, and, you know, there's nothing I could do about it. It was dead anyway, but he did it on his own, and nothing I could do about it. I take responsibility for it, but it was a dead tree. And that was that twin, Louise, on the left that you've seen also. That was, and I did save all the ones that you marked off.
All right, are there any, what I'd like to do is there's, I guess, some neighbors that have some concerns, so if you could step to the podium and identify yourself for the record, and I believe we have some information that's been submitted to the commission.
Hi, Deb Forgione. I'm a neighbor in the area, and I'm also the chairman of the Pawtuckaville Citizen Council. And you do have the report. I was going to pass them out, but does anyone need the pictures or what happened? Okay. We're really pleased of the report that Swati prepared, and it's online. And she pretty much documented exactly what had gone on in that neighborhood. And a lot of work went into this, so I'd like to be able to just read it because I'd like it to go into the minutes. I know Paul Mercia. Paul Mercia knows me. Paul Mercia is a builder for more than 20 years, a good builder, an experienced builder, knowledgeable builder, and he's built in that area before. So the timeline, when we go over this, we're talking about an experienced builder. And basically, we were here. There's do you need one to follow? Okay. When we came to the conservation meeting on the 22nd, a detailed discussion regarding the impact of the permit extension law on 5157 Shirley Ave project was discussed. The significant part of that meeting was the vice chair stated that on the 2005 plan for 5157 Shirley Ave, it appears that all but 2 of the large trees are to be saved. As a matter of record, we expect the large trees to be saved. And that's in the minutes. It was told by the vice chair that night. The next day, the 23rd, Paul Mercia, the owner, ordered the cutting down of a majority of the trees on the lot. The machine used can cut and remove a tree every 3 minutes. Paul's an experienced builder. Anyone that knows construction, that tree, the way to go into a neighborhood for a 15,000 square foot lot was tremendous, because this type of machine, in the 20 minutes it took to the neighbors in the city to respond when we saw the truck, approximately 6 ash and beech trees had to be cut down and stacked. These actions violated the special condition number 1, the 48-hour notice, in the orders of conditions. And the tree removal plan is approved by the Conservation Commission. An enforcement order was issued with a cease and desist order. An experienced builder knows what that means. A week later, August 31st, the owner continued to cut down trees in direct violation of an enforcement order. Then there was a machine the size of a locomotive that chipped the entire trees down that were blown into the trailer of an 18-wheeler. The city planner and the Conservation Commissioner documented the cease and desist violation. By doing that, the evidence was so, you wouldn't be able to count the trees because they were gone that fast. But obviously the neighbors know the land. Commissioner Bonham came down, she saw it. Because of the neighborhood and being proactive, it was happening very fast and people were able to arrive. And the city did an awesome job of coming when we called, and so did Commissioner Varnum. On September 4th, in violation of the enforcement order, violation number 1, and the violation of the instructions given with violation number 2, the owner cleared the lot. And this was documented by the city planner. That's what happened over that period of time. A lot of effort. When they talked about the meetings, if you think about the amount of staff that came down each and every time, proactive, doing their job, and they documented everything. The two things that we wanted to mention is that the following is an excerpt from the Wetlands Enforcement Manual. There seems to be, it's a separate violation of the Wetlands Protection Act to fail to comply with an enforcement order issued pursuant to this section. And we asked the city about something like this situation, and they said that we really have to ask you the question. And I won't take all night, but we have really two important questions. Is that if a violator repeatedly or flagrantly has violated the Wetlands Protection Act, a local bylaw or ordinance, or is causing serious, potentially irreparable harm to an environment, more serious legal action may be necessary. It says in the Wetlands Enforcement Manual, a lawsuit also may be the only way to command attention from a violator who has not or will not respond to the commission phone calls and the enforcement orders. And we wanted to have a question to the commission tonight to know that if that is an option. And also, apparently we can request the involvement of an attorney general, the attorney general, if the actions concern the development that results in flooding. If this avenue is available to us, we just really want to know what are the pros and cons of an AG's involvement. We've been pretty active with this Conservation Commission, and this is not the first time the trees have been cut down, and you find out about it after the fact. And the city has a tree ordinance that measure for measure, inch for inch. You take down a tree, you replace the tree. And there's actually a fine of $200. And that's just a basic tree ordinance. I just would like to see that if there could be more teeth to when the Conservation Commissioner says, please don't, or don't cut down the trees, or it's part of the orders of condition, that there has to be something stronger that we were hoping that could be in place, like the tree ordinance. And basically, we don't know. Is it possible in the future when we have these sensitive sites, especially in the floodplain, can you do a surety bond so that we could replace the tree measure for measure? If they take down the trees that they're talking about, just like the sycamore trees, you can't put them back. You can't put them back the way that they were. So those are our concerns. That's what we saw, and thank you for listening.
Hold on, if you could stay there for a second for any questions. Did I hear you right? You said on September 2nd that you saw additional clearing being done on the site?
On September 4th, in the violation of the enforcement order, yes.
On September 4th?
Yep.
Oh, I thought I heard you say September 2nd. Okay. All right. Are there any questions? Ms. Forgione from the commission.
I just got a question. I'm trying to reconcile the timeline because I think it's important that it's one thing where work has been done and a stop work order has been issued. It's the violation becomes more of an issue if a significant amount of work continues after that first violation and then a subsequent violation order or stop work order is issued. What's not clear to me, looking at this timeline, I don't know who knows the answer to it, but to the comment that Mr. Mercer raised regarding the dead tree, I'm looking at this timeline here, and it says, on October 31st, 2012, developmental service staff observed additional tree clearing occurred in violation of the enforcement order. Did most of this tree removal, and anyone can answer it that observed it, because I didn't observe the work being.
We have people that.
But what I'm trying to understand is, was the bulk of the tree removal done prior to the city first arriving and saying stop work?
No. In fact, we do have people that were more eyewitnesses that can give you even more detail of how all the events occurred. Okay. So they are here. They can talk to you about that. The fact is, 1 tree, 3 trees, 5 trees, 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. There, you saw the amount of effort that the city went through, and
Right, understood.
How many times there could have been, stop, come back to you, look, there's a dead
Understood.
tree, we want to remove it. It was a steamroller, and you see the size of the trucks. If you want to build a road, those are the trucks you use. Those are road building trucks.
Understood.
Logging. That was on a side street, a 15,000 square foot lot, and you brought in those kinds of trees. They meant to clear the lot.
I guess for my intent, the magnitude of the violation, in my opinion, from what I'm hearing, really depends on how much of the work took place prior to that first violation versus the second and third, because one could argue work being done while may have been inappropriate but prior to a first violation is less of a issue than significant amount of work continuing after that first one. And that's why I asked the question.
Commissioner Varner is probably going to be the best expert because she was down there the 3 times. She was called. Swathi was down there the 3 times. These are the experts.
Okay.
And they issued the orders. So the experts did issue the orders and saw enough egregiousness that they did the orders.
So there could be a disagreement between one dead tree being removed.
Oh, it wasn't
versus
just one dead tree. No, and Commissioner Varner could probably tell you
All
that.
right, thank you. No further questions at this time.
All right, and to follow up on what Commissioner Lovely asked, the order issued on August 23rd, and at that point in time, how many trees of the ones identified in the plan and along the southern edge of the property were still standing?
Luisa Varner could tell you better than I.
All right. Do we have information on that?
When I was on the site on the 23rd, I didn't take a tree inventory. We took a number of photographs. I could attempt to go back through there and identify what trees were standing at that point. But there were, as I recollect, there were along the southeast corner more trees that were standing at that point.
How
There
about
was
in
a
any
fair
other
amount of
location
clearing
on
that
the
went
site?
up to the southern parcel boundary, but there were others that were, as I recollect, there were in the southeast corner of the parcel boundary.
How about more towards the northern part of the site?
Along the rear of the site, the rear parcel boundary, there was some standing then.
And those were observed to have been removed after the second visit.
Yeah, and I think if you look at there's a photo collage on our handout that basically shows most of the site has been cleared. I mean, there's maybe roughly 5 or 6, maybe 7 trees that are standing still. There were more than that on the 23rd when I inspected the site.
The report that Swathi did, the last picture is important because it clearly shows you a cleared lot.
Well, there's a tree over to the northern side that's sort of leaning a little bit. Correct me if I'm wrong, that tree's not there anymore, is it?
Well, actually, the neighbor, I went by the other morning, and the neighbor actually has a garden, and I did not, see, that tree, there's no stake, so you really can't even measure if that's their tree. And on the right-hand side, there's trees that are cut, and it really looks like it's the neighbor's land, too. So it looked like to me, because there's no stakes, that they didn't just cut trees on the lot that they own. It does look like that they did trees to the neighbor to the right. And what's dead, what's not dead, was it dead before or after the healthy trees were cut? I mean, it's...
What are the markings on the trees? What do those signify?
Well, here's the interesting thing. There were trees that were marked to stay by a ribbon, an orange ribbon. And now, when in the middle of the carnage, with some humor, when they were cutting it down, every tree was sprayed orange, and nobody knows who sprayed all the trees. So if you went in from a distance, you would have to look up close which ones actually were tied orange and which ones were sprayed.
All right, the reason I asked that question, because in my past experience, I had done some logging, and those spray lines are cut marks. That tells the logger where to cut. That's what
Then every
that's what
tree-
those indicate, if
Wow.
if that's what they're doing, standard practice. So every tree that remains on that property, as far as I was aware, has a cut mark on it. So, yeah.
Well, the fact, that big chipper took away really the evidence of how many trees and
Yeah,
just.
you basically don't spray paint trees that are going to remain standing. You only do the ones that are going to be cut.
Everyone was sprayed. and
Yeah,
it's-
well,
you can
that's,
still see.
even the ones in the picture are sprayed, and I'll tell you right now, I was out there just the other day, and all the trees that are remaining are all sprayed.
Which means it's to be cut.
Well, I don't know, that was my question,
But I
so.
think they probably, if you hire a contractor, you should find out who sprayed your trees too.
Well, it's neither here nor there, but it
I think to go back to, why do people come here? Why would the neighbors come here? Because it's a floodplain. We came here, there's orders of conditions, we expected them to be followed. It sounded like that they were gonna be followed. And then we have this again, where it was a continuous one after the other, and how many times the city had to come down. I mean, this is an experienced builder. It's not a, aw shucks, I'm sorry. So.
To me, what I see is whether or not, whether or not one agrees or disagrees with the issue of whether the trees were supposed to remain or not isn't the point. The point is that a valid enforcement order was issued, and then it was ignored, not once, but twice. And that's the most troubling thing to me.
Well, there's more testimony from these people, because people were there when they were on the phone, and there was clear conversations. Do not cut. Stop. The building inspector said, Paul, stop. I mean, it wasn't just, even the building inspector told him, don't do anything more on the site. And that's when they came back on the 4th.
All right, let's, instead of the hearsay, let's actually hear it. So if
So-
there's anyone who would like to offer their comments or the further information on this enforcement order.
Hello, I'm Linda Harvey. I live on 48 Melrose Avenue, and I am a butter to what is now called 55 Shirley Avenue. And may I give you a copy of my statement?
Attorney Claymont, did you get a copy of this? All right, Aaron, did you get 2 copies?
I'm sorry?
Did you get 2 copies of this?
Yes.
If you could furnish one to Attorney Claymont, please, thank you.
On August 23rd, a huge machine began taking down trees at 5157 Shirley Avenue, although the last I knew, the Conservation Commission had denied permission for this project to go forward. The machine was clear-cutting whole trees at ground level until Commissioner Varnum arrived. The majority of trees were leveled in about 20 minutes. Although an enforcement order was issued on August 23rd, on August 31st, the tree clearing crew returned and began taking down more trees. When I asked an employee of the Burl Company why more trees were being taken down, he said he was told to take down any tree marked in orange. Commissioner Varnum arrived on the scene and stopped any further destruction. Once the equipment was removed, I went by on September 1st and could see 6 trees left standing were marked in orange. On September 4th, the trees cut previously were also removed in violation of the stop work order. And those trees that were taken down on 31st were not one dead tree. Dead trees don't have green leaves. Why am I hearing from people that it's common knowledge regulations are ignored, lots are quickly cleared, and when builders complain they've already spent a lot of money, permission to build is often granted? What kind of remediation restores 60-foot trees? Neighbors who live near undeveloped land are no match for those who have huge machines and a complete disregard for the law. It's like leaving a room full of children with sticks and telling them to play nice. Trees are falling while we waste time on phone calls and emails to city officials who give sorry excuses. 55 Shirley was part of a wildlife corridor for wild turkeys, wood ducks, possums, hawks, and migrating birds. Every tree takes up gallons of water daily. The trees on Mr. Mercier's lot are gone, so that water will move to more backyards and basements in this floodplain. I moved to Lowell in 2005, and my neighborhood was flooded in 2006 and 2007, so don't quote me statistics about 100-year floods. For the last 6 years, I have worked with my neighbors to try and protect us from future floods. I'm not talking about puddles in the road. We had nearly 4 feet of water outside of every house and 5 feet in most basements. The price to residents and taxpayers was $20 million in flood damage. How many of you have gone home by canoe? You are the Conservation Commission, and like the rest of us, are not only responsible for your actions, but also your inaction. Mr. Mercier should be punished to the full extent of the law for his selfish and callous act. Continued development of my neighborhood means an increased risk of flooding, and no one should be able to put the safety of others and their property at risk so he can sell a house to some unsuspecting buyer. The residents don't have the authority to limit building in the floodplain. You do. This was all preventable. Pawtucketville is more than tired of hearing excuses. If Mr. Mercier gets away with this, there will be others right behind him. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mrs. Harvey? I have one, so if you could. On August 31st, you were present when more tree cutting was occurring?
Yes.
Approximately, while you were there, approximately how many more trees were cut down?
I'd say at least 3, and they were not dead trees.
Say that again?
At least 3, and they were not dead trees. They had leaves on them, green leaves.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Aaron, have we received a restoration plan yet?
No.
All right, a restoration plan was due today. Oh, just a second, ma'am. I have a question. A restoration plan was due for today? We haven't received it yet?
The only thing I've been told is that I had to come to this meeting, and I don't even know.
Okay,
I didn't know why.
Mr. Mercier, did you receive a copy of the enforcement order?
No.
You never got a copy of the enforcement
No,
order?
the building inspector told me to stop. I stopped. I got permission. I went back to his office. I got permission to clean the site up.
All right.
And unfortunately, the guy cut one tree that he said was dead, and Louise knows it was dead. She was there with me.
All right, just a second, who is the enforcement order delivered to, or issued to?
It was delivered 187 Mammoth Road, Lowell, Mass., which is the address for Mr. Mercier on the, which is what we have for his address.
As of tonight, I'm just finding out what this enforcement order is, other than they told me to stop, and again, I got permission to clean up, and that's pretty much about it.
The site meeting that occurred on the 23rd, 31st? The 31st, that included the Development Services staff and Mr. Mercier. The enforcement order was there and was discussed.
All right, was it handed to him?
Be receiving that in mail, and he said he will get that.
All right.
I mean, I personally highlighted
All
that.
right. And it was mailed to him? All right, what was the date that it was mailed?
On the 23rd.
On the 23rd of
It's
August?
issued. Yeah, the date, that's
Okay.
the date it's issued.
All right. And to what address again?
187 Mammoth Road.
But, excuse me, I'm not sure what you said. I know that young lady called me a couple times, but I've never received anything other than being told, don't do anything anymore.
All right.
And again, I got permission.
All right,
to clean the site.
187 Mammoth Road, is that your address?
That is
In Lowell,
my mailing
Mass?
address,
01854?
Yes.
All right, well, we can assume that you received it then. You should have read it. We don't have a site restoration plan that's been received yet. That was a condition of the enforcement order that has not been met yet.
All right, this is all new. It's the first I hear of this.
Hey, if I may, the enforcement order was also available online. I know it's been online for at least a week. So it's been available electronically on the city's website too. Yes, ma'am?
Linda Ignacio, a butter own property at 66 Shirley Ave, directly
What's your
across
name
the
again? I'm
street.
sorry.
Linda Ignacio.
Thank you.
And I do have photographs from August 24th at 7:45, and it shows the trees, some trees that were down, if you would like those.
Certainly.
I first became notified that something was going on that lot was on Saturday, August 11th, when a neighbor told me that there was a city truck and city employees, a city truck and one person clearing that lot. And they said, I thought that wasn't approved. I said, it wasn't. Well, then I get another phone call that on August 14th, there was another city truck there with another person, just one person, one truck, and they were working and clearing the lot. So then, what Mr. Hamlet reported here, all these things have happened. But there's something wrong when you see a city vehicle out there and the neighbors are saying, well, I guess it must be okay. What's going on over there? Nothing should be going on over there. A couple of months, about a month ago, we had another conservation meeting, and I handed Mr. Mercier a photograph of the street underwater up to the mailbox and the cars underwater. We shouldn't be building there until we have the whole situation with the canal and the dam straightened out. I'd like to know if Mr. Mercier can use a permit from a previous owner. That was one question I had. And what is the current land elevation now that the site has been modified? And there should be a new drawing submitted in with his application showing the soil that has been moved around without approval. And that's all I have to say.
All right, to answer your first question, yes. An order of conditions or an order of the Conservation Commission, once issued, travels with the land, so to speak, to any successor in interest. And that's why orders are required to be recorded at the Registry of Deeds. Okay, it gives any successor in interest a notice that there's conditions or some other action by the Conservation Commission that's pertinent to that particular piece of land. Okay, so whether or not there's an attendant or a concurrent need for a person who holds an order of conditions to do something collateral to that with the city, I don't know. I can't answer that question because I don't know the answer to it. I had a similar question, and I believe the answer to that is no. That at least as far as the Conservation Commission order is concerned, there's no need for a successor in interest to apply to the city that they're a new landowner. All they have to do is, they take the land subject to the order that exists on the land. Okay, so as far as your second question goes, that's what we're here for. All right, is there anyone else who would like to offer information or evidence regarding this enforcement order? Okay. Attorney Claremont, do you have any further comments?
Just a couple of brief comments. I won't beat it to death, but Mr. Mercier bought this property August 15th of this year. So I don't know what, if anything, went on with this property beforehand, but that certainly didn't involve him. He indicates when he was informed by the building inspector of the enforcement order, the only thing that happened subsequent to that was removal of the trees and the cutting down of that one dead tree, which he did not authorize, but apparently the gentleman did on his own. He certainly takes responsibility for it, but as I said earlier, there's no benefit to Mr. Mercier to removing trees that don't have to be removed. He certainly wants to try and do the right thing. Whether things could have been done differently, I don't know. But I do know he wants to try and do the right thing, and there was no sinister intent in removing any of these trees, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, I'm a little confused, I guess, Attorney Claremont, by the August 14th, because the deed's dated August 6th. It was recorded on August 15th, so I'm assuming was there a closing on the 14th?
Yeah, the deed was signed prior to the closing
Okay.
and held in escrow by the closing attorney.
All right, thank you. Yes, Commissioner Chulka.
Commissioner Varnum, can you just clarify what went on with the tree that you saw, like whether it was dead or not, whether you said it could be cut down?
The first day that the tree cutting began, I live about 5 minutes away, and by the time I was able to get there, there were probably the majority of the trees already down using that huge one-cut machine. In fact, by the time I got out of my car, by the time I got across the street to the lot, there was another one down. That's how fast they came down. The majority of the trees that are on the plan that were indicated to be saved were, I believe, already down when I got there. The double-trunked ash was still standing, and there were some trees along the south side and along the back fence line. I stopped the work that was occurring by talking to the man who was on the site overseeing the work. Mr. Mercier was not on the site. He had a copy of the 2005 plan in his pocket, and he said that the trees on the plan, it was his opinion that the trees marked on the plan were not intended to be saved. They indicated that they had been in discussion with the city and that the city had said it was all right to cut trees, but I don't know who the city is. And I never did get that question answered as to who in the city might have given permission. It wasn't the Conservation Commission. We subsequently, the man on the site that was in charge got Mr. Mercier on the phone, and I spoke with him. And I said that I felt that the trees shouldn't come down, and I believe he told me that he had permission to cut trees. There were some trees standing on the back property line that I felt would be a good buffer between the properties and also seemed to be in fairly healthy condition. And Mr. Mercier said that I should mark the ones that I thought could be saved, and that if they were within that close to the property line, within about 5 feet, that certainly he had no problem saving those particular trees. So I was given some orange tape, and I put orange tape around approximately 5 trees, which were really the only trees left there that were of value. There were some trees next to the house on the south side that were completely overcome with vines, and I couldn't really tell if the trees were dead or alive underneath the vines. So I did not mark those, although most of them had been taken down. There was a multiple trunked one left. There was a straight tree in the south center of the lot that I thought could be saved, but Mr. Mercier said it was in the way of his proposed tanks, and that was not a tree that could remain there under the plan that he had been approved for use. The double-trunked ash, which was still there, was growing in a V shape. One trunk of it was, if not completely dead, practically dead, and that's the tree that Mr. Mercier referred to. The other trunk was alive, but is leaning dangerously toward the other house. So I didn't mark that one. I felt that taking down half of it wasn't a good idea, and probably leaving the other half wasn't a good idea from a safety standpoint, since it was an ash and half of the tree was already diseased. I came back the next day for a meeting with the city entities from the planning department, the building department, and developmental services. And there were marks, paint marks, orange paint marks on the remainder of the trees that I had not marked with orange tape. No one on the site seemed to know who had put the orange paint on the trees, and I don't believe to this day we know who put the paint on the trees or who ordered the paint to be put on the trees. At that meeting, we discussed the project as going, how the project would go forward, and we indicated to Mr. Mercier that there were, even though he had permission to use the 2005 order, that there were also some serious concerns, and that he needed to get a building permit and post the sign for the building permit, which effectively stopped work as well as the enforcement order, since he had not posted the sign for the 14 days required before the permit could be issued. And in fact, I believe I was told at some point that he already had a building permit, which changes your point of view as to what you're looking at as well. If the building department had issued the permit, and it was only later that I was told, perhaps the next day, that no permit had been issued. The trees were still lying on the ground the day after the cutting, and since that was part of the order to take them away, they are still in the floodplain. When I was told on the day the chipper arrived on the 31st, I wasn't that concerned, because I felt the trees should be taken away, that now that they were down, that was a problem. However, apparently that was when the further cutting occurred that was not allowed on the site. I just feel that Mr. Mercier probably has not been giving as much oversight to this project as perhaps he should have. He's been perhaps ordering different contractors to do certain work and not overseeing it himself. And therefore, there's been a lot of miscommunication back and forth. The city has been out there repeatedly because of notifications by the neighbors of what's going on. And then not really a whole lot of communication going back and forth between the different entities and Mr. Mercier as to what actually, who's actually ordering what being done. I find the fact that I find it very curious that Mr. Mercier didn't ask for a copy of the enforcement order, if in fact he was not given one on the site, of which I don't know whether he was given one or not, or whether he was given one and didn't realize what it was. But when you're running into problems and you have 3 or 4 or a half dozen people from the city out on your site and you're asked to meet them there, it seems to me that you should get an impression that perhaps there's a serious problem here, since the city planning office is busy enough that they don't just go by and visit sites on a whim. I find it, I've known Mr. Mercier for quite a while, and as was said earlier, he's a good builder. He's got houses in my neighborhood that have stood for who knows how long. And I just see a disconnect that he has sort of dropped the ball on this particular project and not knowing, claiming not to know what's going on with the enforcement order or with the what work he's able to do and what work he isn't able to do. The trees are down. There's not too much that can be done about that, except perhaps a replanting plan, which is what he was requested to submit by tonight. And we're going to be looking for that, no matter how this goes. In my opinion, that replanting is part of the deal here. I just think there's plenty of eyewitnesses here, and perhaps the eyewitness that's most important that perhaps didn't see much of this is Mr. Mercier. And I'm just sorry that there wasn't better communication, that the trees have been lost. Does anyone have a question?
Is there any questions of Commissioner Vernon? All right, so we're here. Do you have any comments, Attorney Claremont?
The only comment I would have, much has been said about the enforcement order itself and whether Mr. Mercier had a copy of it or not. I would say this, when I'm sort of late to the game, I came in yesterday and I asked Mr. Mercier, leave your file with me, I want to go through it. And then I asked to get some copies of some correspondence that I submitted here tonight. He did not have a copy of the enforcement order. I didn't go online and get it either, but he knew, just from being told, of the enforcement order. He didn't know of the order itself. That's why he didn't know about whatever the requirements were to submit some sort of a mitigation plan. That being said, obviously he'll get a copy of the order, and we'll submit a mitigation plan in order to deal with any issues that may have arisen from the cutting of the trees. Thank you.
All right. To open this up for discussion, we have the enforcement order before us. We have to, as a point of procedure, the way I see it, we have a couple of options and a couple of housekeeping items that need to be done. First of all, we have an enforcement order that was issued. It was signed by Aaron Clausen, dated August 23rd of 2012, under the Wetlands Protection Act and the CMR and the city bylaw. We have to, if any one member or our agent issues an enforcement order, we have to one, open a hearing on it, and two, after the hearing and hearing appropriate testimony, decide whether or not to ratify the enforcement order by the full commission or the majority of the commission sitting, hearing the evidence. So with that in mind, we need, as a matter of procedure, to ratify the order. Now, I will note that there's a couple of outstanding issues, though. The outstanding issues are, one, there was a request or an order as part of the enforcement order to furnish a site restitution. A restitution plan, restoration plan. Thank you. By today, and that hasn't been done yet. So we need, and concurrent with that, need to determine what, if anything, going forward, we should do about that. We have options. I mean, we could issue a fine on a daily basis until such time that we receive the restoration plan, or we could order a new date without taking any action. I'd like to throw that out there so we can open that up for discussion. The other issues are the secondary violations of the stop work aspect of the enforcement order. Not once but twice. Whether or not we've received, whether or not we as a commission are satisfied that there was in fact continuing violations or secondary violations of the order itself, and what, if anything, do we do about that? So I guess as a matter of procedure, what I would like to do is request a motion whether or not we should ratify this, or at least have a motion so we can open it up for discussion and then vote on it, and then proceed on the secondary issues as I've outlined, or if there's any other issues that I've missed. But at this point in time, do I have a motion to ratify the enforcement order that issued on August 23rd, 2012?
Mr. Chairman, just for point of clarification, do we need to resolve the restoration plan issue as part of that, or?
Well, yeah, what I'd like to do is just to start the ball rolling, is to get an indication as to whether or not an initial violation occurred,
right.
And whether or not we're satisfied an initial violation occurred, and then to discuss the secondary violations. I mean, you could even oddly not ratify the fact that there was an initial violation if you didn't feel that, for instance, the trees couldn't have been cut, meaning that it was a permissible action by Mr. Mercier as part of the order of conditions. Regardless of that, an enforcement order issued, rightfully or wrongfully, but then there were secondary violations. You don't get to be judge and jury. You have to follow the enforcement order and then follow the procedure, and you gotta follow what the enforcement order says, and then there's an appropriate forum to discuss whether or not it's valid. That's tonight. That was September 12th. But regardless, we're here tonight, we're discussing that, but then there's secondary issues that we have to discuss beyond that, and whether or not we as a commission, and I believe, it's been raised tonight several times, whether we as a commission intend to do anything. further beyond the enforcement order itself. So,
All right, well, with hearing that, I think, without even looking at intent, just looking at the facts as they stand, I'm convinced there's enough information and evidence out there that a violation did occur, and therefore I would offer the motion to ratify the order.
right, do I have a second?
Second.
By Commissioner Varnum, motion by Commissioner Lovely. Do I have any discussion on the motion? All right. So this is just on the ratification, and then we have secondary issues too. All in favor of ratifying the enforcement order, signify by saying aye. Commissioner Biedron?
Aye.
Commissioner Lynch?
Aye.
Commissioner Chalupka? Chair is yes. Commissioner Varnum?
Yes.
Commissioner Lovely? Okay. So the commission has ratified the enforcement order now, indicating that we're satisfied that a violation did occur, and that the enforcement order was valid and properly issued. Now, the secondary issues, we still have not received, and I'll perhaps take these in reverse order. We haven't received a restoration plan, which, as part of the order, was ordered to be submitted by today. And I expected it to be at this meeting, and we don't have it. Going forward now, what is, and again, I'm opening this up to discussion, what is, the pleasure of the commission? As I see it, we can give another date to order the applicant to comply, or the Mr. Mercier to comply with the enforcement order and submit a restoration plan, or to a future date, either the next meeting or a time in advance of the next meeting. We have the authority to issue a fine on a daily basis until such time that the restoration plan has been received by the Conservation Commission, whether or not we want to do that going forward. So, again, I'm going to open that up for discussion and ultimately a motion. I'm loath to fine people. I really am, but at some point in time, you have to throw up, your hands and say, hey, the act says we have the authority to do this, and the act says that it's a proper procedure to be used in a situation where, in my mind, we've got 3 separate violations here. We have the original order, and then we have two further violations that occurred. I mean, what do we do? Just say, hey, no, hey, I have more time? I mean, I'm looking at this saying that, to me, this is a situation that at least in my mind, calls for the issuing of a fine until such time that a restoration plan has been submitted and approved by the Conservation Commission. That's my feeling on this. I'm tired of seeing these projects coming before us and then complete and total disregard of the orders, and developers just doing what they feel they can, what's cost effective, what's cheapest, what's easiest, and it's got to stop. So that's my feeling. I'm going to open it up for discussion and your thoughts.
At what point would a fine start? Would it start the date of the enforcement order?
Well, to me, I would say it would be going forward. The restoration plan was to be submitted today, so it's late tomorrow. And as a matter of fact, the Wetlands Protection Act requires that the submittal be by 5:00 p.m. On the date that it's ordered. They don't have till midnight, they have till 5:00 p.m. So even though it's not specifically specified, that's actually in the act. So if you look at the time frames and how they go, so the applicant had until 5 p.m. today to submit the restoration plan. So I would say by 5 p.m. tomorrow, he's 24 hours late, and that's one day, that's one fine. And then the next day is another fine. The next day is another fine until such time that the restoration plan is received.
And what's the limit that we can find?
It's $300.
$300 seems reasonable since there were 3 separate violations. I would move to issue a notice that the restoration plan should be submitted, that this plan should indicate types of trees proposed to be used as replacement, and that these trees should not necessarily be the same species as the ones that were removed, but they should not be invasive species. They should be species that would survive well in a wetland situation, which this lot tends to be on many occasions. They should number at least the number of the ones on the plan proposed to be saved, and this would be in addition to the ones in the rear that have already been saved. They should include additional trees not shown on the plan that would be on the south side, which shows on the plan as being vegetated. These trees should be substantial species, not merely dwarf decorative type species of trees. And care should be given that spacing and types of trees chosen will allow for enough space for the trees to survive and be successful. They should be located on the plan, and the plan submitted to the Conservation Commission for discussion and approval. This plan should be submitted as soon as possible, and for any portion of a day that we do not have the plan, the applicant shall be fined $300. My intent being that if he submits it tomorrow by 5 o'clock, we still have a considerable amount of the day where we would not have the plan, so that would be $300 for tomorrow. Should it go into the next day, the same thing. So submitting it by 5 o'clock does not take away the fine for that particular day.
It just stops the fine from going forward.
It stops it from going forward, exactly.
So do I have a sec? All right, it's not done.
No, I'm done.
Do I have a second on that?
Just a clarification. You'd be looking at...
Can I have a second on that prior to clarifying?
Well, before second, can I clarify? Are you looking at an initial $300 fine and then $300 per day until the plan's submitted? Is that your motion?
My understanding...
Unless he's standing on the doorstep when City Hall unlocks the door tomorrow with the plan, he would have an initial day's fine.
Okay. I would second that.
All right. Do I have any further discussion? My understanding is that Mr. Mercer is to submit a restoration plan pursuant to the enforcement order and as further outlined by Commissioner Varnum. The restoration plan is to be received by the administrator for the Conservation Commission, and until such time that it's received, that a per diem fine of $300 per day, or per diem fine of $300 is to issue. So is that's the motion?
And that's the motion. I'll second.
All right. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor signify by saying aye or nay, but Commissioner Biedron?
Aye.
Commissioner Lynch?
Aye.
Commissioner Chalupka? Chair is yes. Commissioner Varnum?
Yes.
Commissioner Lovely? All right. It's unanimous. Now, as a secondary, and whether or not this motion was done in contemplation, I just want to open it up for discussion. Whether or not the fines is contemplated by the most recent motion, was that, and to open up in discussion, does the commission intend to do anything regarding the secondary violations of the order itself? Or is that part of the fines going forward until such time that the applicant complies with the restoration plan submittal? And again, I'm going to open that up for discussion. I'm one at this point in time, at least satisfied going forward that what I would like to do is at least reserve my right as a commissioner to not act at this point in time on the secondary violations, with the understanding that we can reopen it and find a violation on separate dates, on 2 separate dates of the enforcement order that's been ratified going forward. The way I look at this is that on August 31st, when the development services staff went out and visited the site and saw additional tree clearing going on, at that point in time, that was a secondary violation of the original enforcement order. The way I look at that is we could take that day forward up until the order has been complied with, and retroactively issue a per diem fine to the developer. Again, on September 4th, when there was additional secondary violation of the stop work order observed. Again, each separate violation is a separate violation. We're limited as to how much we can fine, but you can fine on each separate violation too. So if there's a finding of multiple violations, each one can be separately penalized. I, for one, am satisfied at this point in time, at least going forward, that we don't need to do that, but I would like to, at least as a voting member of the Conservation Commission, reserve my right to do so in the future. Someone can make a motion to go back and do that. We're all have an equal vote here, but that's my feeling on it. I don't feel we need to take any further action on those separate violations, other than note that they occurred, and at least for me, reserve our ability to go back if need be and issue separate violations for those. So I'll open it up for further discussion.
On my part, what I'm looking for is a very good restoration plan, not something that's going to come in and have us rearrange it all and finally come up with something. This needs to be remedied, and and just scribbling down anything that might fly is not what I'm looking for. If this comes in a way that I don't feel can be used fairly without a lot of remediation, then I would be willing to look at the other violations for fining too, because this has to be remedied now. You know, we can't spend another 2 months talking about which tree goes where. We really need a good plan. We need it as soon as possible, and if not, then the other violations are going to come into play because the lot is sitting there unremediated.
Any other comments? Commissioner Chalupka?
I would just agree with both of you that I'm satisfied with the one set of fines until the remediation plan, because I think, or the restoration plan, I believe that's the most important result that we're looking for.
Comments?
I feel the same way and be willing to offer
Yeah.
a motion if need be.
Yeah, I mean, with the understanding, at least for me, that, you know, the wholesale cutting of flora within a floodplain is prohibited by the Wetlands Protection Act, and it was also prohibited by the specific order of conditions and the site plan notice of intent plan as a part of this particular order of conditions. And you know, we as a commission recognize that trees and healthy trees and the trees specifically on this lot and in this particular neighborhood and in this particular floodplain serve an incredibly valuable purpose and absorbing groundwater and relieving the stress that this neighborhood suffers on an annual basis due to constant flooding that goes on here. So it's, you know, Mr. Mercier, I know you're a developer. I know you build a quality home. You've been before us before. But you have to understand the sensitivity of the area that you're working in. And the people that live there are, you know, some of them are fed up with what's going on. And they have no recourse. They have no ability to flow to stem the tide that's creeping up, as it seems, on an annual basis, you know, on their properties. All right. That being said, if there's no more discussion on the enforcement order, let's move on to the extension. And now, as a matter of procedure, I think we have a problem. And I'm not sure what the answer to this is, but I'm not sure we can extend an order with an open enforcement order. The Wetlands Protection Act is silent as far as I'm aware, but it would seem strange to me that it would be prudent for a Conservation Commission to extend an order that's due to expire in October, 5th? October 4th.
5th.
5th,
October 5th.
Of next month with an open enforcement order on the property.
Mr. Chairman, I think it's even further complicated than that, because I believe from the last meeting, one of the unique situations that came out of the original order of conditions being extended is that an unintended consequence is it grandfathered in underground storage of stormwater runoff. The old plan, if you look at it, has a proposed 5,000-gallon flood mitigation tank, and if the applicant were to apply today for a permit to do the work, that type of flood mitigation would not be allowed, as I understood from the last meeting we had.
Yeah, if I may, the Code of Mass Regulations indicates the procedure for extending an order, and 310 CMR section 10.05, subsection 8, says, in Part B, indicates that the Conservation Commission may deny an extension, and it gives different reasons why. And it gives 5 separate reasons why, and in my opinion, we have 3 of them for denying an extension. One of them is the existence of enforcement orders and enforcement action and violations on the site, and we've just spent the last hour talking about multiple violations in the first week of work. The second one I've already alluded to, and I know Attorney Claremont disagrees with me, but the standard order that issues out of Lowell gives you a 28-day window to record the order after issuance. It doesn't say, receipt or anything like that. It says issuance. It was issued on October 5th of 2005. That would have given you I think the first or second day of November to record, but it wasn't recorded until November 10th. So there's no weekend rule that you get to enjoy for that, so it's not just business days, it's all days. And to me, that in and of itself rendered the order null and void, but that's just one other issue to consider. The other issue to consider, there's in fact right now an open enforcement order on the site that hasn't been complied with. The last issue, and it's perhaps 2 parts, is that the Conservation Commission may deny an extension if there's been changed circumstances from the time that the order was initially issued up until now. Well, this order was issued in 2005, and normally it would have expired of its own terms in October of 2008. But in the meantime, the Massachusetts legislature and the governor signed an extension act, and it was due to the economic hardships, I guess, was the intent of the act. And the original extension extended all orders that fit within the window, and apparently this either may or may not be one of them, depending on whether or not we feel that the order expired of its own terms or was voided of its own terms back in October or November of 2005. But the original Extensions Act extended it for 2 years, and then that law was modified and extended for an additional 2 years. So this order enjoyed a 4-year bump. And if I might add, it wasn't Mr. Mercier who received the order. It was 2 predecessors in interest prior to him who received the order. So it wasn't Mr. Mercier who applied for this work and then just didn't do anything. It was 2 prior owners that had done this. Now, and as a result of these extension acts, 4 years were added on to the time. So, 2005 to 2008, and now we find ourselves with literally the last 3 weeks that we feel, does he have enough time to finish developing this site? Well, right now, no further work is going to happen until such time that the Conservation Commission is in receipt of a restoration plan and considers it, and we're not meeting until another 2 weeks. So that will literally give you 1 week, assuming we lift the enforcement order at that point in time and allow work to proceed. And I I'm not even going to ask. I mean, I suppose, you know, in my opinion, I don't think anyone can build a house and develop a site and finish it and regrade it and reseed it and get it ready such that it would be ripe for requesting a COC, a certificate of compliance, in a timely manner prior to October 5th of 2012. That's 3 weeks from today, or 4 weeks from today. I don't see anyone being able to do that in the history of building satisfactorily. Notwithstanding that, the 310 CMR 1005 8B also indicates that the commission may deny an order under changed circumstances. And, you know, in between now and then, we've had some fairly significant changed circumstances, at least from what I understand. One is there was a change in the procedure in the law in the way that flood storage was allowed to be handled. These underground chambers are no longer allowed under the Wetlands Protection Act to compensate for fill in a floodplain. They were back in 2005, or actually they were just, the DEP was just starting to deny them at that point in time, but in the meantime, they are no longer allowed, and we've turned down several in the meantime. That's one change circumstance. The other change circumstance is there was two very, very significant floods in the city, and finding this particular site under multiple feet of water. Two 100-year plus floods, and from what I understand, the second flood, the 2007 flood, was not a 100-year flood. It was a much less flood, but still found this site under multiple feet of water. To me, the order that issued in 2005 prior to these floods having occurred, and the remediation and the compensation that was proposed is woefully inadequate, and to me is a significant change circumstance that I could not in good conscience vote in favor of extending this order. So that's my feel. It's Commissioner Bedrin,
No comment.
Commissioner Lynch, Commissioner Chalupa, Commissioner Barnum, Commissioner Lovely. All right, yeah, this is part of the public hearing process, so if anyone, you know, I'll open it up to you, Attorney Claremont, if you would like to offer your, or advocate on behalf of the extension.
Just briefly, again, I won't beat it to death, but as you've stated, Mr. Chairman, this property is under a current enforcement order, which makes it impossible for the applicant to complete the work within the time frame set by the statute. I think the intent of the legislative intent of the statute was to allow these projects to be built. I understand your position regarding changed circumstances, but I believe the statute refers back to the original filing in 2005, so I don't believe that changed circumstances would be relevant in this case, and I would request the board to extend.
No, I understand what you're saying, but the Extension Act doesn't, the Extension Act didn't, while it automatically gave, at first instance, a 2-year extension to all orders, and then another 2-year extension to all orders, that was done because of the economic hardships that we have been going on. I mean, I think we all realize that, because one of the reasons, in fact, for denying, and it's not a may, it's a shall deny an extension request, is for economic reasons. if a developer, for instance, gets an order of conditions and sits on the parcel for 2 years and 10 months and doesn't do anything, and he's got a 30-day, he has to apply for an extension prior to 30 days of the expiration of the order, and 60 days he applies for an extension and hasn't done any work, that's almost a de facto denial of the extension. Now, the extension, the Permit Extension Act contemplated those economic hardships and extended all of these for 2 years. We understand that. But it did not change the other rules and the other considerations that the local boards, in this particular case, the Conservation Commission and/or the DEP, could consider in whether or not an extension is a proper thing to consider. As I said, as I just outlined, in my mind and in my opinion, regardless of the enforcement order, assuming the enforcement action never even occurred, I would still vote against the extension because I don't feel that the applicant or any builder could finish the property in 3 weeks in order for it to be, and don't forget, it's got to be done. It can't just be somewhat done. It's got to be done and ready for a COC. And in my opinion, that's impossible. It's physically impossible. There's no way. The second main reason why I would vote against an extension is simply because nothing was done here. And it wasn't that Mr. Mercier applied for this order back in 2005 and then ran into some difficulties and didn't do anything. He came into the property just, as you say, a month ago or within the last couple of weeks. This was 2 prior owners that and I understand the Saab estate was one of them, but this was 2 prior owners that did absolutely nothing as far as development of this property goes. I find it somewhat of a curiosity that given all the changes to this, notably the 2 significant floods that this neighborhood suffered, and you live in this neighborhood, Attorney Claremont. I mean, I know you're a little bit higher in altitude, but I mean, you probably had some difficulty in 2006 and 2007 getting to and from your home. This neighborhood was devastated in those floods, and to me, those are significant changes in circumstance that warrant against extending this order, notwithstanding the enforcement order. Now let's add in the enforcement order and forget about the other stuff. I think the enforcement orders alone and the violations alone are significant enough and are properly within the purview. Multiple violations have been identified and repeated violations have been identified in just the opening couple of days of starting work, which, by the way, we still have not received a start of work request from the applicant, as far as I'm aware. Have we received one? I noticed that they intend to start work.
Not in documentation.
Okay.
No.
That's a requirement of the order of conditions, a written notice to the Conservation Commission, 48 hours. If you read the order, that's in there. And we still haven't received it. So that puts you back another 2 days. So there's, multiple violations here. So forget about the other reasons. Now let's just go to the violations and the repeated violations and just the first couple of days of working on the site. I think alone, as far as I'm concerned, militate against extending this order. Compound that with the fact that we still have an open enforcement order. What I would like to do is open that up. Yes,
I'm sorry,
Attorney
I just
Quinn,
want
go
to
ahead.
comment on that. Again, just for the record, I want to make it clear that we're not applying for an extension based upon economics, but due to the impossibility of performance, as was stated, with an outstanding enforcement order, we can do nothing, and the time frame will pass. And I understand that the neighborhood was devastated by 2 floods, and in Chairman's mind, that brings about a change in circumstances. But I believe, with an outstanding order of conditions, if the property is properly built according to that order of conditions, it's built to withstand those types of situations. So I believe that wouldn't be necessarily a reason not to allow an extension. So just for the record.
Yeah, I mean, Mr. Mercier appeared before us not too long ago, and for a new order of conditions. And he was denied. And he was denied simply because, or one of the, I shouldn't say simply because, but one of the major reasons was because of the utilization of underground compensatory storage tanks. I'm not going to sit here and say that this site cannot be developed. It perhaps can be. It just can't be developed under the state of the law, at least going forward on any new application in this manner. And that's the heart of the extension. And the heart of the extension is, what are the changed circumstances that, I mean, we're looking at a 7-year-old order that got grandfathered in, got extended 2 times by operation of law completely without regard to the circumstances of this particular situation. But we're still charged with, under the Wetlands Protection Act, looking at the circumstances of a very old order and whether or not we want to extend it, because it's going to expire on October 5th of 2012, whether we do anything or not. I would think it would be prudent for Mr. Mercier to perhaps say, I don't have a lot into this right now. Maybe it's prudent for me to, start again before I, going forward, get halfway through, assuming, we get a restitution plan, a restoration plan, and that's approved and the enforcement order gets lifted. You're going to get, how long does it take a foundation to cure? That takes a couple of days, doesn't it? You're really, it's going to take the framers a week to put up the frame and get the roof on and get the windows in. I really don't see the house getting built, developed, the site regraded and finished and planted and seeded in the time frame that he has left. And again, the enforcement order and the stop work order that exists now doesn't toll the time. That's not one of the things that tolls the length of the order of conditions. So it's whether the stop work order continues beyond, it's going to expire on its own terms. Whether or not the site is developable in this particular fashion, I'm going to say, with the underground storage tanks, no. Is it developable? Yeah, perhaps it is. It's just not developable in this manner. And again, we've got to look at something that was allowable to do in 2005 and say, what are the changed circumstances? Well, the changed circumstances are 2 significant floods, one of which wasn't a 100-year flood, but had this property under several feet of water. It's going to be a total failure of this system. This system isn't going to function in that particular case. We didn't have that information in 2005 when this order was issued. We have it now. And again, I know, I know some folks are here, you've stayed here, and I don't know if you want to speak at all, but it is part of the public hearing process, so if you have anything you would like to offer with respect to the extension of the order of conditions, kindly identify yourself. I know you already have, but you have to do it again.
Deb Forgione, Townsend Avenue. I just want to say, I think I commend you for the statement that you made that at this point, there has to be teeth in the orders of condition. And I commend you for making that decision. We appreciate you listening to us, and thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to offer their comments or concerns? All right. Is there any other questions from the commission? All right. It's before us. It's a request for an extension. We have to, we have to act on it. I mean, I'm not sure of the answer, and I would be reluctant to put off acting on this because of the open and existing enforcement order, but because the open and existing enforcement order does not stop or toll the time that the order exists in, because time is critical. I think, we at this point should give an answer to the request. So it's not hanging out there for another 2 weeks. But, I think it either, if we vote to extend it, then, Mr. Mercia has time to breathe and time to get his ducks in orders. If we vote not to extend it, then at least he knows, he can either appeal that, I suppose, or decide to regroup and resubmit. But, I mean, that's entirely up to him. But at this point in time, what I'd like to do is call for a motion to either extend or not to extend, so.
I move to deny the extension request on this particular order 584, 206584.
And the reasons, do we have reasons being?
Reasons being that there are changed circumstances at the site. There's an outstanding enforcement order that needs attention. Work has not begun on the site, and the type of construction that's proposed is no longer allowed and could cause problems with other properties in the neighborhood due to flooding.
All right, do I have a second on that?
I'll second it.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying yea or nay. Commissioner Beardron?
Aye.
Commissioner Lynch?
Aye.
Commissioner Chalupka?
Aye.
Chair is yes. Commissioner Varnum?
Yes.
Commissioner Lovely? Okay. So the commission has voted not to extend the order for the reasons specified. The if I can find my agenda. All right. We have nothing else. Do we have any other business?
That's it.
All right. Thank you for coming in, folks. Sorry it took so long. All right. Good night. Do we, nothing else? We don't have any minutes?
No.
All right, good. All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded by
Second.
Commissioner Lynch. All in favor signify by saying aye. The opposed, the ayes have it. Good night.